It was a chilly afternoon in late October when Daniel Turner stood outside a busy coffee shop, holding tightly to the small hands of his two daughters as if they were the only anchor keeping him steady. And in truth, they were. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, not because the weather called for it, but because he still carried the weight of exhaustion from a long shift at the construction site. The cold wind bit against his skin, yet Daniel hardly felt it. His mind was crowded with thoughts. The never-ending stack of unpaid bills, the groceries he still had to buy, and the constant question of how he could possibly give his girls the life they deserved. His eldest, Sophie, was 7, wise beyond her years, with gentle hazel eyes that had already learned to hide worry. Her younger sister, Lily, was 5, a burst of joy who could brighten any day with a single laugh, though lately even her giggles had become rare. That afternoon, a moment unfolded that would change all of their lives forever, and it began with the voice of a stranger. Before we go on, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring heartwarming, inspiring stories like this to people who need hope. Daniel had no idea that a woman standing only a few feet away, wearing a royal blue blazer and a skirt as crisp as the autumn air, was about to shatter the fragile stillness of his world. She looked like someone untouched by life's harsher edges. Her confident posture, the way her jewelry caught the muted light, and even how she carried her purse all hinted at a life of comfort. Her name was Cassandra Whitmore, though Daniel wouldn't learn it until much later. For him, in that moment, she was simply another stranger drifting along the edges of his reality. Until Sophie suddenly let go of his hand, stepped forward and said in the clearest, most innocent voice, "Say yes to her request, Daddy." Daniel blinked, startled. He hadn't heard any request, nor seen a sign that one was coming. But Cassandra stepped closer, her eyes shimmering with something he couldn't quite place: pity, determination, or perhaps even desperation. She explained that she had been sitting inside, sipping her latte, when she overheard part of Daniel's conversation with Sophie about how hard things had been lately and the things they couldn't afford. Cassandra had noticed the way his shoulders slumped, the protective way he held his daughters close, and something inside her had cracked. Then, without the slightest tremor in her voice, she spoke words that sounded impossible, almost laughable in their boldness. "Marry me, and I'll help you raise your daughters." Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. He didn't know whether to laugh, walk away, or ask if she had lost her mind. In his 34 years, he had faced hardships that would have broken other men, but never anything like this. A beautiful, wealthy stranger proposing marriage on the sidewalk as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The girls stood wide-eyed, sensing something important was happening, though they couldn't quite grasp its meaning. Daniel searched Cassandra's eyes, trying to understand her motive. Was this a joke, a cruel prank, or something else entirely? Over the next hour, as they sat at a corner table inside the cafe, Cassandra told him everything. She came from wealth, old money, but she had reached a point in her life where even that couldn't protect her from the loneliness she felt. She had watched her friends marry, start families, and discover a sense of meaning far beyond the cold numbers of business transactions. A few months earlier, she had been diagnosed with a medical condition that could make having children of her own difficult, perhaps even impossible. When she saw Daniel with his daughters, something deep inside her whispered that this might be her chance to have the family she had always longed for. Not in a calculated or transactional way, but in a way that was deeply, achingly human. For Daniel, their conversation felt like a whirlwind. Part of him wanted to refuse instantly. His pride burned in his chest. He didn't want charity dressed up as love. He also didn't want his daughters to grow up in a life they hadn't chosen. But another part of him, the one that kept him awake at night staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering how he could give his girls safety and stability, hesitated. Cassandra spoke about giving them a home, financial security, the chance to attend good schools, and the promise that she would love them as her own. Yet, it wasn't the promises themselves that stayed in Daniel's mind. It was the quiet sincerity in her voice, the way she didn't flinch when he opened up about his debts, his failures, and his doubts. Days passed after their meeting, and Daniel found himself torn between two very different paths. One was the life he already knew, hard, uncertain, and lonely, but honest. The other was Cassandra's world, safe, comfortable, yet full of questions so big he wasn't sure his heart could navigate them. He remembered his late wife, Emily, the woman he had loved since high school, whose death in a car accident had left him broken. Could he really allow someone else into his heart? Could he trust that Cassandra's offer wasn't just a momentary impulse born from pity? And most importantly, could he risk his daughters becoming attached to her only for everything to fall apart? The turning point came one evening after dinner, when Sophie climbed into his lap and wrapped her small arms around his neck. In her gentle, steady voice, she asked if they would ever have a real home again. One where they didn't have to move every few months, where she could keep her friends, and where Lily could have her own bed instead of sharing in cramped spaces. That question broke him in a way nothing else could. He realized then that love wasn't always about holding on to the past. Sometimes it was about allowing your heart to find new ways to beat. When Daniel met Cassandra again, his answer wasn't what she expected. He told her he wouldn't marry her, not yet, but he would allow her into their lives, not as a rescuer or benefactor, but as someone willing to earn their trust. If she could prove to his daughters that her love was real, that her commitment wasn't just born from a lonely afternoon, then maybe they could build something lasting. Cassandra's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, Daniel didn't see the millionaire or the woman in designer clothes. He saw a human being willing to wait for love on someone else's terms. Over the following months, Cassandra became part of their lives in ways Daniel never could have predicted. She attended school recitals, helped with homework, and even learned to bake Lily's favorite peanut butter cookies after burning the first 3 batches. She never pushed, never rushed. She simply loved in the quiet, consistent way that mattered most. And then, one day, exactly a year later, Daniel found himself standing in the same spot outside that coffee shop, his daughters by his side, and Cassandra standing in front of him. This time, it was his turn to speak life-changing words. Marry me, and let's raise them together. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kness Corner. Leave a comment telling us how it made you feel. Your engagement helps us share more true, inspiring stories with the world. Before you scroll away, take a moment to tell us which part of this story moved you the most. We read every single one,